I know you had some ideas of your own to address with me, but I have some ideas too. So we will take turns. So
Yeah, I I I can start with. Uh, I found because I've been play testing a lot with the different in different like with you and with a couple of in other constellations,
mhm.
both like three and one and only like solo play with one person. And I my overall experience is that a lot of the parts in the system, it kind of stresses me as a game master, and I become very like very wind up
Interesting.
because
Okay.
and I wondered why. Because is it because of me? Is it because of I'm nervous of? But it's not, because it kind of forced me to make a lot of uh, less meaningful choices.
Right.
You understand?
Yes.
And that it kind of, I had to select from lists and whatever, and I had to read text, and I had to. And I mean, it was it was basically a lot of like decisions that were not me. They did not help me at all as a game master, and I think they also created a kind of an um, confusing end result. So I that was one thing, and there was, I tried to make it simple from the beginning, but that was the actual effect of that
Yes.
simplicity. You tried it like
Well,
a simple system, but that that was
sometimes the least, it may be related to a point. It may or may not be related, but it may be that for a while, in especially in the late 1990s, a lot of people who wanted to make role playing simpler said the easiest way to do that is to just make it formally the game master's problem to say what happens.
no,
And that will be
exactly.
so simple, right? Look at it. We have all these terrible charts and we have all these terrible tables. We have all this
Yeah,
terrible math and we have all these terrible rolls. And we're so sick of that. Let's just say the GM says, and that will be
and
so
and
simple.
and the
So I'm actually claiming that that is less simple.
no, yeah, it seems to be simple because it's faster,
Right. Well,
but you get a really creative overload on the game master, and you get a really boring assignment from the game master.
I
And
think so too. Yeah.
I think you also experienced that when you don't have a that when I don't have a system, because that's one of the aspects that I have tried to add now, because the like the narration or our authority and the outcome authority is uh, is still a bit vague. It's much more obvious in, for an example, Mountain Witch or
Yeah.
Primetime.
Hmm.
Say this person tells what happens, and I've been working with that, and I've been like, and I think I realized it while we were playing all the time, and it was one of the things that I got really stressed about. But
I see.
I
Hmm.
didn't have a system to fall back on. So
Right.
like I like ended up, okay, this happens. All
Right.
right, you roll that. Okay, that so I everything ends up on my
Right.
responsibility, and
Yes.
it's not the way I want it. It's more of like a kind of an what do you say, like a dark pattern of play style that you
Right.
fall into because you're used to it.
Right. Right.
And we all do it, and we need a system to help us with that. So I've been elaborating with that, and the other thing, it's really I look at my Excel sheets now for the conflict resolution engine, and I went from I have one like section that is first iteration, second iteration, and third iteration, and I'm. This is this is the way I almost always do stuff, and I think this is. I don't know if it's good or bad, but I start with something that is really complicated and big, and I kind of know that this is not where we were going to end, but I need to have that, and
Mhm.
I try that out, and then I go, and then I take away stuff, and I
Sure,
take
that's a
away
very
stuff, and
good
I take, and
process. There's nothing
yeah,
wrong with that process at all.
and but it's maybe a bit like if you get people have to like put up with a bit of
Oh,
overcomplicated
absolutely. I mean, that is
solutions
an
in the
aspect of
beginning.
playtesting
Um,
is that it also
yeah,
is frustrating in my experience. It's
yeah,
why I tell people that I playtest with for my games, I tell them that
yeah,
I don't want their opinions. I know this is going to change.
yeah,
And I am here to experience it and decide what will go away. And I don't need to have a committee meeting about it. And so,
exactly.
right. So that you will notice that I have done very, very little. I hope almost no feedback of that kind. Right. I have not gone
I,
back
I,
and said it's
um,
something I try
I,
not to do.
no, and it's sometimes that's sometimes people can come up with really nice things,
Well, I just
and
let that be
and
the
and
miracle when it happens, you know? Yeah.
yeah, I understand. But anyway, so what I did was that I tried to keep the things that I liked about the conflict resolution, and that was like the decision where you put your oppose, defend, recon, or disrupt. I think that's for me that I I kind of I'm starting to really like that division.
I seem to
And
remember it seemed very easy for you. You said, "Oh, disruption." And so it
yeah,
seemed kind of nice and grounded. You know, you felt like you have your feet on the ground when you say this one
I
or
think
that
I
one.
can.
Yeah,
I think I can do
it
that,
seemed that
and
way.
it's almost like getting to know those
Yeah.
things. And when you
Hmm.
get to know them through play,
Hmm.
you can describe them in the rules.
Of course.
I think I'm getting there,
The best rules
but
description is just saying what you actually do. Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm.
The other thing that was the things that I felt was really slowing things down a bit too much in almost all aspects was the thing where you got to choose the established aspects, especially when you were in a conflict that had several roles. Because, for example, your Garth, he made a couple of moves that were a bit separate. And and every time you did something that was not like shooting someone, you had like hide. It had different aspects that
Yes.
were put into that, and to and the always have to recalculate and redo that. I felt that that's kind of it got a bit like a traffic jam almost
Yes.
with
Hmm.
decisions,
Hmm.
and you also everyone wants something to feel like wow, there's action, something's happening,
It is
and you have to like
irritating as a group collectively, even if it's not that bad for one person at any
you
given
know
time. But it is irritating for the group collectively to have each person doing this.
yeah, exactly. And
Okay, let's see, each time. Yeah.
so what I did there was and it was connected. So I kind of I was like after we played and then I played another session the day after with another group with three players, and
Yeah.
I in both cases I had this like a kind of a big conflict pool, a lot of things happening,
Right.
and it all came out like and people and there were a lot of different things. So I just called Eric, my friend. I said
Yeah.
I have to change this. This doesn't work, but I will not decide it now. So I kind of went for one day and just didn't write anything, just
Right.
let it like fall down, and then I kind of did a lot of. I don't think things will appear that change to most people, but they really are. Oppose, defend, recon, and disrupt is much more clear. What do they actually do?
Right.
Oppose is always one thing. It's always like
Right.
cutting down the conflict pool, demolishing the opponent, whatever. Defend is always trying to not to get hurt. Recon is always getting more information, or get like finding information you can kind of get in a better position next time.
Right.
And disrupt is always, and this is the new thing, disrupt means that you're from the beginning, it's actually inspired by Champions Now, you know, the move where you speak.
Right, your presence attacks, yeah.
Yeah. So this
you are
is
coming
my
in from some
version of-
other angle. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Instead, I don't want to kick him in the face, but I want to tell, watch out for the axe.
Right.
That's a disruptive
Right.
move. Or doing something on the contrary.
Yes,
So
exactly.
disrupt
It's like
is
everybody thinks this fight is about this thing. I think it's about this thing instead.
Yeah. And when you say, and so I put the mechanics for helping into disrupting, because helping always means that you're not a gunfighter, but you want to help the one gunfighting. That's where you use help, because if you're a gunfighter also, then you should. Yeah. So basically, they're much more like this, and it became much more clear. And the other thing that was really not working was me buying moves for my that economic was like
it's completely
and it was interesting because it seemed like a good idea at the beginning, as all ideas are, but the result was that I was more or less reading, and I think we discussed this before with lists and stuff like that. I was more or less reading from and seeing what I wanted to, instead of thinking, what do my character want? What was this NPC? What's he doing? I was always reacting to something, and I was reacting to the player's role. So if the player role was bad, I could do stuff, and I kind of, okay, then in this case he does this, and it didn't feel like
you weren't really playing the characters, you were busy moving points around. Yes,
exactly.
So there are several solutions I see, especially because most of them are subtractive, which is the best kind of solution. So that's good.